good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Chinese ESCO market, trends and barriers, which will be presented by Jingwen Wang, the Deputy Secretary General of the ESCO Committee of the China Energy Conservation Association, EMCA. Before Jingwen starts, allow me just a few minutes to introduce the Global ESCO Network, who is organizing today's webinar. The chairman of the network, my name is Søren Lütken, and we are in fact anchored in UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center in, obviously, Copenhagen. The Global ESCO Network works for the integrated use of the ESCO industry as implementation partner for energy efficiency, motivated by climate change. It's the mission of the Global ESCO Network to add to and reinforce existing efforts of national and regional ESCO associations to promote increased activities by the ESCO industry at a global scale. That means we are in fact a network of networks, meaning that ESCO associations are organizing national ESCO companies, and we organize the associations at a global scale. Now we have 34 partners, and you can see here on the map where we are covering. We are covering 90% of the ESCO associations that we so far have been able to identify. The network is a loose network. It's guided by an advisory board of 7, and that advisory board is providing, obviously, advice for the network, also for the direction of the network, the activities of the network. And one of those central activities is, as our mission statement says, to make proposals, present ideas and experience-based advice for governments on how to include ESCOs in energy efficiency policies. Energy efficiency doesn't happen fast enough by itself and needs regulatory intervention. That's a lesson that we have learned through, well, first of all, statistics. We know from analysis made over the years by particularly IEA that the improvement of energy efficiency is in fact falling. We need regulatory intervention to increase the pace of energy efficiency improvements. We have, over the past 1.5 years, worked on analyzing regulatory barriers for ESCOs through our partners, our network, and the ESCO associations. And we have identified a number of barriers through those interviews with our partner organizations that we are trying now to formulate into an ESCO ecosystem, consisting of a number of elements. Our motivation here is that as also mentioned in the beginning, that energy efficiency is a very important, in fact, a central element of climate change policies globally. It is also the cheapest emissions reduction option around, and using ESCOs for its implementation makes it the economically most efficient way for governments to reduce their emissions. Now, as I mentioned, the regulatory barriers analysis that we have done here is an instrument for us to identify the elements that are important for ESCOs to thrive, and we are in that process still, and we have not come out with our ultimate policy advice for governments for promoting ESCOs, but we have been able to, through this regulatory barrier analysis, to identify a number of instruments that governments can use for promotion of ESCOs. I'm not going to go into detail with these 8 elements that we have identified, but just briefly mentioning that we find it important, first of all, that there is an agreement on the definition of an ESCO, and it is not so much just to have a standard definition, but more to be sure that we create a foundation for trust in the market. So far, there is no formal definition of an ESCO. That means that any company could, in fact, call itself an ESCO. But if we want to make sure that there is also trust on the demand side of the partners that private or public entities work with as ESCOs, we need to be sure that we all agree on what an ESCO is and what an ESCO can be expected to supply. The second element is that we find that governments should, as part of that ESCO definition, also back an accreditation system that makes sure that ESCOs live up to a certain set of criteria for their operation, including the quality of their services. And one part which seems to be also a barrier in the market is that the contracting process is complicated. Even though the ESCO services seem to be a simple idea to make a profit from the value of the emission of the energy efficiency or the reduced energy consumption, and make that profit pay for the investment. In practice, that the contract that governs this interaction between the client and the provider, the ESCO, turns out to be complicated. And for that reason, a standard contract has shown itself to be valuable in many markets. And we are promoting that a standard contract should be put in place in a market, or maybe in fact a set of standard contracts, as there are different ways to engage with ESCOs. What we find could be the most important driver of energy efficiency is in fact a national mandatory audit scheme. That means mandating either industry or large buildings or both to run regular audits of the energy consumption in order to identify the high energy consuming elements or installations that could be improved on energy efficiency. Some mandatory audit schemes even have mandatory implementation attached, following which the owner of the installation is required to undertake investment in those high energy consumption installations that they possess. That can be combined with ESCOs, as ESCOs could be the provider of the service or the investment into the improving of the systems. Financing has also been shown to be a barrier in some countries, at least, not in all countries, but in some countries, where a financing facility to alleviate particularly payment risks of clients could be a way forward for improving the ESCO market. We also find that a straightforward clarification of taxation could be helpful. And then in many markets, we have a number of barriers where they're not targeted at ESCOs, but they come across the ESCO business model. One example is contract duration, which is limited in some public sector contexts, and for that reason eliminates the the commercial value or the possibility for the ESCO to enter into a contract that is long enough to pay back the investments that they may be doing in energy efficiency equipment. What we are suggesting is to introduce circumvention strategies for those barriers that cannot really be removed, but there may be ways in which we can consciously circumvent those barriers, and we need to find ways to do that. And finally, we have in some markets also individual metering requirements, or in fact, we do not have them, but we suggest that we should have individual metering requirements in order to have a direct linkage between the actual energy consumption and the payment for that energy consumption. That was a bit longer than I had intended, but those are the elements that we are currently looking at as part of the policy advice. As I mentioned, we're not ready with our final package yet, but we are working on it. We hope to be out next year with the Global ESCO Network's policy advice package for governments to hopefully take note of and implement. How this looks in China, we are looking much forward to hear from Jingwen Wang. I'm sure that there are also other factors in the Chinese market that has secured the Chinese pole position for ESCO promotion and ESCO business. So let me hand over the microphone to Jingwen Wang of EMCA. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. And hello, everyone. My name is Jingwen Wang, and you may call me Tina. I think that's easier to remember. First, I would like to express my appreciation to this webinar platform organized by our global ESCO work, so we could have the chance to communicate and study from each other, understand other countries' ESCO developments and experience. And thank you to give EMCA this opportunity to share our information in China. Today, my presentation will include two parts. First is the development of China's ESCO market, including our history and developments of each phase. Secondly, I will explain a little bit the barriers, obstacles, and difficulties that Chinese ESCOs are still facing. China's ESCO market can be divided into 5 phases. The pilot phase, or we call it the demonstration phase, promotion phase, rapid growth phase, transforming and upgrading phase, and the golden ages. For the pilot phase and the promotion phase, since this information had already been mentioned a lot in many documents and materials from the World Bank, and have been talked a lot in many occasions long time ago. So I believe that here today, most of you have pretty familiar about that. So I will only briefly touch these 2 phases very quickly. My presentation today will focus on the other 3 phases: the rapid growth phase, transforming and upgrading phase, and the golden ages. In 1998, Chinese government worked with the World Bank, GEF, and introduced an international cooperation project, the World Bank GEF China Energy Conservation Project. The objective was to promote this new energy saving mechanism, the energy performance contracting, expecting that with more and more ESCOs born and growth, eventually forming China's ESCO industry. Meanwhile, the project concerns to attract varieties of investors to make commercial investment to energy-saving projects, and eventually fulfill the achievement of rapid development of Chinese ESCO market. So in project phase 1, 3 pilot ESCOs were established. We called them the Beijing ESCO, Liaoning ESCO, and Shandong ESCO. They were in different provinces, but these 3 ESCOs, they all had the state-owned background in different levels. The reason was to ensure the safety of the GF grant and the World Bank loan. This opened the prelude of Chinese ESCO market. So we called it the pilot phase or the demonstration phase. And based on the successful phase 1, the World Bank and Chinese government agreed to implement the project phase 2. One of the tasks in the China Energy Conservation Project phase 2 was to establish a permanent organization for Chinese ESCO market, the ESCO Committee of China Energy Conservation Association as Chinese National ESCO Association, and setting the mission as to promote EPC mechanism and support ESCO's growth in China. The establishment of EMCA also marked that China's ESCO market had entered a comprehensive promotion phase. The second task in project phase 2 was to implement a loan and guarantee plan for Chinese ESCOs, because most of these ESCOs then were small and medium-sized enterprises. So it was very hard for them to provide mortgage to get funds from the traditional financial institutions. And also, these ESCOs were short of financial credit. So in project phase 2, the loan and guarantee plan was to make use of a small amount of guaranteed funds to provide loan guarantee for ESCOs who were lacking of financial credit, and to provide effective financing aid for these newborn ESCOs, while helping ESCOs to provide financing capacity and financial credit. It aimed to encourage Chinese financial system to enter into ESCO market. So in the 7 years from 2003 to 2010, EPC mechanism got rapid promotion in China. And let's move to the third phase, the rapid growth phase, which was between 2011 and 2015. This phase was also the 12th five-year plan period of China as well. During this period, Chinese government had paid increasing attention to EPC mechanism and ESCO, with more and more policy support issued. At the level of national government, many policies, management measures, opinions, and work arrangements, and other format documents had been issued to support EPC and ESCO. At this stage, EPC mechanism had developed into a market-oriented energy-saving mechanism as government-supported and users-accepted model. In this phase, policy support definitely played a key role on ESCO's promotion and rapid growth. It turned out the substantial importance of policy to market in China. During this phase, there were many policies issued, nationally and locally. But there were two most important policies of all. First is the financial incentive policy. In June 2010, the Ministry of Finance and the NDRC jointly issued a notice on the interim measures for the management of financial incentive funds for energy performance contracting projects. China's Central Finance decided to allocate 2 billion RMB in 2010 to support ESCOs to implement energy-saving renovations using EPC mechanisms in the fields of industries, buildings, transportation, as well as public organizations, which was also the first time that China's special incentive funds were used to encourage ESCOs to implement EPC projects. Under such active and tremendous promotion from the national government, the local governments had also brought forward the corresponding policies and measures to push forward the EPC mechanism in their provinces and regions, including their local financial incentive funds. During this period, the financial incentives played a tremendous role in pushing the development of China's ESCO market. And also in this period, the number of China's ESCOs had sharply risen, and the growth in all aspects was astonishing. The other important national policy was the preferential tax supporting policy. In December 2010, the Ministry of Finance and the State Administration of Taxation issued a tax policy for ESCOs, which stipulated that for the qualified ESCOs, their EPC projects are exempted from value-added tax and their business tax, and for the corporate income tax out of the EPC projects applied for the preferential tax of exemption for the first 3 years and half reduced for the following next 3 years. This preferential tax policy was unprecedented for Chinese enterprises. These policies fully demonstrated China's efforts to advance ESCO market. And these two policies, the financial incentives and preferential tax supporting policy, they brought unprecedented development opportunities for China's ESCOs. And please note that these two national government policies were all issued in the year of 2010. And you will see from the following data that how much influence that these two policies had on Chinese ESCO market. And now I will show you a group of diagrams that displays the developments of China's ESCO market between 2005 to 2015. By the end of 11th five-year plan, which is the year of 2010, the number of ESCO in China had reached 782, 8 times increase compared with the number of 76 at the end of the 10th five-year plan. By the end of the 12th five-year plan, the number of ESCOs reached 5,426, nearly 6 times increase compared with the number of 782 at the end of the 11th five-year plan. The number of employees in ESCO market had reached 175,000 by the end of the 11th five-year plan, nearly 10 times increase compared with the 16,000 at the end of the 10th five-year plan. And the number of employees in ESCO market had reached 107,000 by the end of the 12th five-year plan. Nearly 2.5 times increase compared with the 175,000 at the end of the 11th five-year plan. So we can see from this diagram that over 80% of the ESCOs were set up to implement EPC business or transformed from other fields to ESCO market during the 12th five-year plan. And more than 430,000 persons joined into ESCO market during the 12th five-year plan. During the 11th five-year plan, the accumulative investment in EPC projects reached 68.395 billion RMB, with 15 times of net increase compared with the 10th five-year plan, and forming an annual energy saving capacity of 22.4268 million TCE, with an annual CO2 emission reduction of 61.067 million tons. And you may see from this diagram, during the 12th five-year plan, the total investment in EPC projects was increasing from 28.751 billion RMB in 2010 to 103.956 billion RMB in 2015. By the end of the 11th five-year plan period, the total revenue of ESCO market was 83.629 billion RMB, 16 times of increase compared with the end of the 10th five-year plan. And by the end of the 12th five-year plan, the total revenue of ESCO market increased to 312.734 billion RMB. From the perspective of annual CO2 emission reduction, in the year of 2010, which was the end of the 11th five-year plan, the annual CO2 emission reduction out of ESCO market was about 61.067 billion tons. And by the end of the 12th five-year plan, which was in the year of 2015, the annual CO2 emission reduction out of ESCO markets was about 310 million tons. From all the diagrams I have showed here, I think it's pretty obvious and everyone could clearly understand that during China's 11th five-year plan and the 12th five-year plan, China's ESCO market experienced an explosive growth development, especially during the 12th five-year plan, which was from 2011 to 2015. That resulted from our financial incentives and the preferential tax policies I just mentioned. And the consequence during this period, ESCO market has developed rapidly, and the industrial scale has risen sharply. And from the other side of view, this crazy growth has also led to some problems. Although the policies really encouraged the growth of ESCO market, both from the ESCO side and from the user side. However, since there were lacking of the corresponding supporting mechanisms and detailed implementation plan for the policies, which resulted in the difficulties of the policy implementation and target fulfillment in practice. The fourth phase this is the fourth phase, is the transforming and upgrading phase. This phase started from China's 13th five-year plan. The most significant characteristics of this phase include the strength of our ESCOs is gradually enhanced, and the connotation and extension of China's ESCO mechanism is continuously enriched. And here, I list several of the characteristics during this phase, but not all of them. First, the number of the employees engaged in ESCO market continues to grow, as well as the number of China's ESCOs. But the growth rate had slowed down compared with the 11th five-year plan and the 12th five-year plan. According to the statistics of IEA by 2020, the total investment to EPC projects of China's ESCO market has accounted for 59% of the global ESCO market. From this diagram, we could clearly see the growing number of ESCOs from the year of 2016 to the end of 2021. But you could also see that the growth rate was decreasing from the year of 2016 to 2019. There were many reasons for that. During this period, the financial incentives from national government had been revoked, and there were no new heavyweight policies to further encourage ESCO market. And also during this period, China had paid less importance to energy saving work compared with the 12th five-year plan, especially in some local regions due to some business environment reasons and some environmental protection reasons. I think maybe some of you know that during that time, in order to prevent the worst environment and the air pollution in China, many industrial factors were restricted their production, and some of them even being shut down their processing line. So the environment for energy saving work was not very friendly for ESCO. So during this time, the growth rate was decreasing, although the number was still increasing. And from 2019 to 2021, the growth rate started to increase again, especially from 2020 to 2021. And that's because China's dual carbon goal announced and followed with many supporting policies in energy efficiency field. And we call it the spring of energy saving is coming again. And the statement of supporting and encouraging to adopt EPC mechanism appeared in many important policies issued by different departments of national government, and followed with the copying documents issued by the local governments. And without any doubt, the ESCO number by the end of 2022 will be increasing sharply, and the growth rate will have significant increase compared with 2021. We think that China's 30-60 target will make a continuing prosper for China's ESCO market. And secondly, back to this. Secondly, according to our statistics, the EPC projects in non-industrial field had been arising, and the number of EPC projects in building field accounted for the largest proportion presently. During the 11th five-year plan, the number of EPC projects in industrial field accounted for 62%. And when it comes to the 13th five-year plan, this proportion decreased into 42%. And the EPC projects in building field and the public facilities field had been growing rapidly, accounted for 58%. The main reasons for the growth include first, with the adjustment of energy consumption structure, the implementation of the elimination of backward production capacity, and many industry sectors has reached their production capacity peak. The energy consumption in industrial sectors has gradually decreased, while the energy consumption in the building field and in public facilities field had rapidly increased. And secondly, in the 11th and the 12th five-year plan, at that time, the energy efficiency in most of industry sectors was generally at a low level. It was easier for ESCOs to achieve a high energy savings from the project renovation. Sometimes only changing the equipment would have great energy savings. So a large number of industrial renovation projects with mature technologies and good economic benefits had been widely implemented, leaving the projects in industrial processing flow less involved. For these projects, because it involves the processing flow of the factories, they need ESCOs have higher technical level. From another side, these industrial energy users, they don't trust ESCOs. They are afraid that if anything happened to their processing line when implementing EPC projects, that would be a big problem, bigger than not do the renovation. The safety is still their biggest concern. And from the ESCO side, their technical capabilities sometimes restrict their in-depth digging and achieving the energy-saving potentials in industry sectors presently. That's why now more ESCOs implement EPC projects in non-industry field. And also for the industry renovation projects, usually they need more investment than building or public facility projects. An ESCO can develop 1 or 2 projects in industry 1 year, but may develop and implement several projects in other fields 1 year. Thirdly, ESCOs who engage EPC projects in industry field need higher financing capacities. Whether yourself have money or you could get financing from other institutions. However, from the perspective of project investment, the investment in industrial sectors still dominates, accounting for 71%. So industrial projects are still the absolute main force contributing to energy savings in China. Thirdly, the technological types of EPC projects are more diversified. During the 12th five-year plan, most of the EPC projects were in the field of wasted heat and wasted pressure utilization, as well as the motor system energy saving, which accounted for 77% of total EPC projects. However, by the 13th five-year plan, the investment in these two fields had dropped sharply, with 24% investment in wasted heat and wasted pressure field, and only 5% in motor system energy saving. And more technologies emerged. For instance, the photovoltaic, the wind power, renewable energy, and distributed energy energy station, and the energy system optimization projects. Fourthly, in this phase, the understanding to EPC mechanism becomes more and more rational from the whole society. In 2015, the national government cancelled the financial incentive policy, which had a certain impact on China's ESCO market. But the good thing is that the market has passed the stage of irrationality and returned to rationality gradually. During the 13th five-year plan, there was no special policy introduced, and many ESCOs quitted this market for other business. The remaining ESCOs need to consider their advantages and directions they should go for. It is especially important for ESCOs to carry out the self-improvement and innovation. Only the ESCOs with their own characteristics could survive well and develop well and keep their life longer. So many remaining ESCOs, they had made many breakthroughs and innovations in technological development, new product business operation mode, and in the aspects of providing more and more value-added service for their customer. And more factors is and will be supporting the growth of China's ESCO market. For the fifth characteristic, some factors that support the growth of ESCO market during this phase. First is the policy plays substantial roles on guiding the hot spots of the ESCO market in China. For instance, during the 13th five-year plan, China issued a series of policies and requirements on blue sky defense field. And as a reflection to ESCO market is that the investment proportion of heating system energy saving projects and the clean heating projects increased significantly from 4% in the 12th five-year plan to 17% of the 13th five-year plan. In addition, the policy promotion mechanisms in the field of cooling and the data center, and in the aspect of national carbon market, all of these have played certain role on promoting the further development of our ESCO market. Secondly, more and more ESCOs they employ or develop their own intelligent operation platform, and the advanced technological tools, including the big data, the Internet of Things, AI, and blockchain, to assist their energy users in achieving the promotion of their energy efficiency, to help their project better implemented. This has become a tendency in ESCO market. And with the development of technology level, the intelligent tool will play more significant role for our ESCO market in China. And thirdly, in the field of standard or criteria system construction, we, EMCA, is trying our best to improve it. For instance, we adjusted and added more contents in our standard contract and recommend our ESCOs use this template to avoid potential risks. And also, we promoted the draft and announce of the general technical rules for measurement and verification of energy savings as a national standard. And with the increasing improvement of the standard system construction in the field of energy saving, it plays the great role on promoting the healthy, sustainable development for ESCO market. And in addition to the national standards, in recent years, the development of group standards is growing rapidly, which is also of great help for ESCOs, because the group standard has shorter processing time to be introduced compared with the national standard. So that is a great advantage. The next phase is the golden phase. The golden ages started from the year of 2020, the point that China officially set up and announced our 30-60 dual carbon goal. The dual carbon goal, the dual carbon target is undoubtedly an important stimulus for China's energy saving and carbon reduction work, and for China's ESCO market, and for China's energy conservation work. A new development boom comes. Chinese national government has put forward many policies and documents, such as the working mechanisms, requirements, methods, etc., to promote our dual carbon goals, in which many of them include to actively promote EPC mechanism, including the national government's policies and documents, as well as the local governments and the different sectors, such as the iron and steel sector, the public organization sector. And this is also a great incentive for ESCO market in this phase. That's the development of China's ESCO market. And now I will quickly summarize the obstacles and problems of China's ESCO market. And first, the enthusiasm of energy users of implementing energy renovation has not been fully mobilized. So the market potential of ESCO market is far from being fully released. Secondly, it still lacks of energy-saving technologies with subversive effects. And the difficulty of achieving more saved energy in renovation projects will be more and more. And thirdly, financing is still a barrier for ESCOs. The majority of China's ESCOs are small and medium-sized enterprises with limited mortgage capacity, while the characteristics of energy-saving projects include the longer payback term and higher risks, which do not conform to the business principles of commercial financial institutions. By now, it's still a lack of innovative financing model, and the existing financing mechanism and method need to be constantly innovated. The ESCO market has huge need for capital. In order to achieve our dual carbon goal, we will need 100 to 140 trillion RMB for the next 3 decades, which is more than 3 trillion RMB annually. Conservatively estimated that our annual financing gap will be more than 2 trillion RMB. So the gap is huge. And finally, I will share some conclusions at the end. First, the guidance and the support of China's policies have played a significant role for the development of ESCO market in China. Secondly, driven by China's dual carbon goal, more policies and documents that are conducive to ESCO market will be introduced in the future. The contribution and achievements of ESCO to China's energy saving and emission reduction have already been recognized by Chinese government, nationally and locally, and in many sectors. As Chinese government has understood the significance and contribution of energy efficiency promotion to fulfill our dual carbon goal, ESCO and EPC will get more and more policy incentives and encouragement. So for the coming years and decades, China's ESCO market will have an ascending tendency, that's for sure. And the applied sectors will be expanded. Thirdly, the mode, the type, and the service content of EPC will continuously evolve. And the extension and the connotation of the concept of EPC will continuously evolve in China in the future. And currently, there are 3 basic modes of EPC mechanism being adopted in China: shared savings and saving guaranteed, and energy cost outsourcing. And sometimes these modes may be combined to use with 2 or more modes together. Fourthly, ESCO market still has tremendous potential in China, and it is of great significance to promote the overall green transformation of China's high-quality economic development. This market in China is absolutely huge. With the promotion and fulfillment of China's dual carbon goals, more and more people will come to this area, and this market will make a great contribution to China's 30-60 goal. And fifthly, we still have a long way to go to perfect our ESCO market in China. And next, I will make a very brief introduction to our association, ESCO Committee of China Energy Conservation Association, abbreviation of EMCA. We are the China's National ESCO Association registered in 2003. It was the production of the World Bank and Chinese government's projects, the China Energy Conservation Project Phase 2. In that part, I have already mentioned in the second phase of China's ESCO market. And we are committed to building a bridge between ESCOs and the government, establishing a public service platform for our ESCO industry, and becoming a window for exchanges and cooperations at home and abroad. I think that's all for my presentation. China's ESCO market is actually, I think China's ESCO market is complicated, and since the situations, mechanisms, and government system and developments are so different, so I think it is not very easy to explain very clearly, and it's not easily to understand. So therefore, I think if you have specific question to the contents that I have mentioned just now, and welcome to email me. And thank you for your attention. And thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Jingwen. That was a very interesting and comprehensive presentation. We normally have questions and answers after these sessions. We have one question from Japan. I can see Mai-san from our ESCO has a question here for you, even though we are in fact over time. But I think this is an interesting question. The Chinese government has provided many incentives, as you have already presented in your presentation here. Are there also any kind of penalty programs for energy efficiency? So there's been a lot of carrots. Are there also sticks involved?
I currently don't think there's a specific penalty program for energy efficiency, but maybe in some regions for some enterprises, if their energy consumption is over standard, and then these enterprises they will have to burden. They will have some responsibility to reduce their energy consumption. But there's no penalty. The penalty means fine.
Correct.
There's no fine. Yeah, there's no fine.
Okay. We have a few other questions, but I think we would close the session here. We are already over time. So I wish you, well, as Jingwen said, anyone who has further questions on the Chinese ESCO market, please send us your questions by email. We will make sure to answer them after this webinar. So thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much, Jingwen, for making this comprehensive presentation. It was nice and interesting to have insights into the Chinese market, which obviously has been developing on the basis of significant regulatory involvement, which is exactly what we also feel at the Global ESCO Network, that we cannot improve conditions for ESCOs without having a regulatory intervention to more or less extent, of course. But it's obvious that in China it has certainly worked, and we hope to be able to get other countries to follow that example. Thank you very much again, and enjoy the rest of your day.